Hello, dear friends. Here we are. Your thought, your life. 30 days of therapeutic journey. It's chapter 7, day 7, work. Yes, here we are. As you know, we're studying this book, Thought and Life, by the Spirit author, Emmanuel, through the medium, Chico Xavier. If you're coming to us first time, this book is a book that is studied in the schools of regeneration in the spiritual realm and is brought to us mercifully through the hands of the medium Chico Xavier. And Emmanuel is the author, bringing to us what he says is a synopsis of these guidelines for life. People who are preparing to reincarnate take these courses. Not everyone though, but many people on the earth. Hopefully one day everyone who reincarnates, because our planet evolves, right? Today it's about work. But before I begin reading the chapter, this study is structured like this. We say the greetings, we read the chapter, and then we say a few more greetings, and then we go into what science could tell. Like as a neuroanatomist, we dissect the message. Dissect, we open every single part, every single tissue to understand the anatomy of it and also its function, the physiology of it, okay? So hello, dear friend Jussara and Raquel. Hello, Marcio Lee. Hey, Canada. And Melissa. Gratitude to you too. Adilson, Angelita, ballerina. I'm just reminding Virginia and her clips. There is an Angelina, ballerina, but Angelita. Inspirational, yes. And it's interesting because we're talking about how important it is to manage our thoughts and our feelings. We don't know yet quite how to do it. We were born and people say grow, and they give food, do. And they go send you to school and say learn, intellectual learning. And think about what you want to do in life. It's basically these three, right? It's about physical nourishment, intellectual boosting, and what you want. It's important, but it doesn't suffice. In the book Living in Spring, Emmanuel clearly tells us in a message titled Children that it's not enough to give people and children food for the physical body, educational for the intellect. We need to give them moral ethical guidance, and this book is all about that. But we need to spread it out and to give our children and ourselves an opportunity of studying who we are. Who are we? Who are you? Why are we here for? Where have we come from? What happened in previous lives before we came here? And these are pertaining questions to everyone who is not dormant in life, who is fully awake. Right now we were doing our God at Home with our friends, Karen and Mark. And Carlos and I, Mark and I, were reading, and Carol, we were reading this message, Attentive Workers. And it's interesting because it belongs to what we're going to study today. Chapter 7 is about work. Before we reincarnate, we have the opportunity in the School of Regeneration in the spiritual realm of having lessons on work. But what is this work? Often we think of work, Emmanuel's going to say, of something that is not too good. Before we begin reading the chapter, how do you feel about the word work? Think about work before we go through the text, okay? Because our feeling about it may change after studying this lesson together. When you think of work, name your feeling. What is it? Is it good, bad, pleasant, unpleasant, dragging, overwhelming, or joyful, inspirational? What is it? Frustrating or enthusiastic? Let's think about this before we begin the study, shall we? And hello, Luciana and Solange. Oh, the faces, and Daniela. Welcome, welcome, dear soul. Yes, we sing that song. Welcome, welcome, dear soul. Now you're here, let us grow. Yes, let us grow by reading. Let us read throughout the message. It's short but powerful. And throughout this process, meditating, we're going to stop and then go through the reflections, okay? Okay. As Melissa is saying, work, according to the dictionary, Merriam-Webster, activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or result. Thank you, Melissa. Emmanuel, chapter 7, book Thought and Life. He writes, work. If we wish to mentally register the light of higher planes, we must be willing to embrace work as our daily sustenance. In the past, we looked upon work as something belonging to the lower classes or to condemned slaves. Schools, the arts, housework, industry, and farming were previously assigned to slaves, while the supposedly free lived in a state of comfortable idleness. Today, however, we know that the law of work is the path to freedom. Without this law, the mental world would fall into slumber and stagnation. To flee its dictates is like stepping to the roadside to watch the traffic of evolution pass, leaving behind all those who choose the illusion of laziness. The man who practices deception will not only suffer for the unfortunate act of stealing what belongs to the general good, he will also regret the misfortune of having prepared for himself a prison cell that stifles his best spiritual faculties. Mere activity for its own sake, however, is not enough. The lower regions are a beehive of activity. Beyond the obligation to work principle, though we are remunerated, we must reach a point where we feel the pleasure to serve. In the natural sequence of our development on earth, our incarnated spirit is compelled to a continuous struggle in order to survive. Human beings receive the water, the sun, and the sustaining atmosphere for free. However, to assure his physical well-being, he has to labor and suffer for the protein and carbohydrates he needs. Although captive to the requirements of the material plane, in which he dwells for a time, he can nevertheless begin to experience the elation of voluntary service to mankind once he opens his soul to the reflection of the divine sphere. Action transforms environment. Service transforms the human beings. A task that is paid for is generally received with thanksgiving by those it has helped. Yet, such tasks remain a part of ordinary and typically worldly exchange. On the other hand, tasks that are offered spontaneously and voluntarily, without thought of reward, will activate the influence of heavenly goodness that also helps everyone freely. As we advance, we'll understand more and more clearly the need to work for the sake of serving. When we begin to serve our neighbor wholeheartedly, we enroll in the process of purifying our own soul and begin to align ourselves with abundant life. In the higher realms of spirit, work is not imposed on anyone. A person who is conscious of truth understands that doing good attunes him to the love of God. He surrenders to this fact of his own free will. This is why the higher realms, he who serves progresses towards the heights of a glorious immortality. He reproduces within himself the marvels of heaven that surround us everywhere. Breathe in and out. Woo! What a warm-up. It's like going to the gym. Wow, what a warm-up. It's like the teacher's asking, can you feel? Are you warm now? Oh yeah, we're warm and ready. Bring it on. We're ready for the exercises of the soul. Hello, Rihanna. And Monica, and I bet Daniel Castellani somewhere there too. And friends, yeah, Melissa. You know, it's a workout for the soul. But before we enter the therapeutics of this chapter, of course, there are a zillion ways of studying these materials. We were advised and we are being guided by the mentor Joseph, who asks us to break it down in its therapeutic purposes, okay? Giving us tools and resources to find greater wellness and to progress more steadily, okay? To be more coherent in this life. But before we begin it, let us very humbly analyze the way Emmanuel writes this book. He's such an educator. And of course, he's bringing to us a book that is already studied in the spiritual realm. Let's not forget that life first happens from the spiritual to the physical. Nothing happens in the physical before coming from the spiritual. So the question for us is, if you want to change the status quo of anything in your life, where do you begin first? For example, physical health. You want greater physical health? Where do you begin? Oh, Vanessa, I go to the doctor. I start a different diet. I exercise. And what have you done with your mind? What have I done with it? It's impossible, right? According to what we know, to change my physical disposition just by doing material approaches. I need to go to the core, the spiritual. The same for more harmony in ourselves and our homes. Oh, I wish my home were better, so I'm going to paint. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. But are we doing something from the spiritual to be manifested in the physical? In this book, we are learning that everything begins in the mind, from the spiritual realm, and then it manifests in the physical. The physical is a consequence. So if you pray, if I pray, if we think something good, if we do something good, like Chico when he spent 2 years as an instrument of reading inspirational messages in the center, giving talks, and there was no physical being, no incarnates, only discarnates. What a work! They reincarnated, and a friend of mine who was very close to him said that Chico Xavier revealed The many people who are nowadays incarnated used to be the discarnates who were listening to Chico Xavier talk about the gospel those 2 years. And no wonder if majority of the spirits who are connected to the earth are discarnated. Whatever you do in your own corner of the world, don't forget, majority of the inhabitants of this planet are discarnates. By operating with him, by working and favoring them as well, we are changing, we are helping transform this planet from its core to the manifestation of the incarnate, okay? So this work we're talking about is not only the work of the physical, it's the true work, a work that goes to the core. And observe as he begins. Throughout this chapter, he associates work with higher planes. From the first sentence to the last sentence, it's not by chance, it's not a coincidence, it's a purposeful method of education. He is making us associate work with high spheres, higher planes. Let me give you the words, okay? Higher planes. And later he talks about general good. And he talks about, here later, he says divine spheres. And later he says heavenly goodness. And later he says abundant life, love of God, and he finalizes the marvels of heaven. So in this unique chapter, he is associating work with higher spheres, higher planes, love of God, abundance in life. He's talking about heavenly goodness. He's educating us not by explaining alone, but by wisely coordinating expressions that are going to be imprinted in our minds, so we change the way we feel about work. When we were beginning here, we're asking, how do you feel about the word work? Because after studying this, it's likely that you're going to feel differently. Hello, Patricia, and Felipe, and Osvaldo. Hello, friends, and loving hearts. It feels good. Work, work. Now we're saying work, and now we're smiling. Ah, work. Right? When we began like work, and now it's like, ooh, work. Work and higher planes. Let's begin. If we wish to mentally register the light of higher planes, we must be willing to embrace work as our daily sustenance. He's not talking about the daily work of material sustenance. He's talking about every useful occupation. Right, Rihanna? Work equals love. When we're being useful, we're being useful. Love work, it's a love life. He's saying if we want to mentally register the light of higher planes, we need to embrace work as our daily sustenance. How many people are suffering nowadays and they say, I want to feel the connection with the higher spirits. I feel so sad and downcast. Are you ready to embrace work as your daily sustenance? Because if you do, as soon as you begin it, you connect, you start feeling it. It's as fast as we're talking about. You don't need a million years to feel it. You just need to begin it. Boom, and you feel it. No matter what we've done to date. He says in the past, we looked upon work as something belonged to the lower classes, right? And the slaves, and those who freely lived were in comfortable idleness. How many people still feel like this? Friends, do you still feel that if you are of a higher class, you don't need to work. You don't need to do anything. You can wake up and do nothing. Some people retire and they do nothing. We feel sorry for them. Because according to what the spirits say, we can't retire and do nothing and stay home. That's gonna turn out pretty bad. It can't go right. It can't. Why? Because idleness. Oh, but Vanessa, I'm gardening and I am cleaning and I'm doing this. Yeah, but are you feeling useful? Yeah, for now I am. In a month. We need to feel we are occupying ourselves usefully. But usefully doesn't mean only for yourself and your loved ones. It means for the general good. Remember the law of cooperation? We're not the pilot of our lives. And let's not forget, when he begins this chapter, he's saying, you're not the pilot. There are higher planes. There is God. If you wanna stay safe in this plane, you better allow the pilot to drive. And you, co-pilot, be diligent. Do your part. But don't think you're the pilot, because it's not gonna happen. We're not the pilots of life. God is the pilot. We're the co-pilot. Let us cooperate. Constructive collaboration. So, we know that the law of work is the path to freedom. Now he's revealing to us that the higher planes, the heavens, we think of heavens, we think of the higher spheres, the heavenly spheres, so free, free of guilt, free of shame, free of disturbances, free of evil. And he's saying, in order to achieve that, we need to work constantly and never be idle. To be free is not to be idle. It is to be active, working. But he's going to talk about that word activity, right? So if we're feeling not free by logic, we can go back and ask ourselves, am I embracing work at a higher level, not the physical work here for the material sustenance, but the work as being useful everywhere we are? As Emmanuel says in the book Living Spring, chapter 8, Attentive Workers, the total devotion to the tasks that were given to us by society. Are we? When you do your work, even material one, do you do with total devotion? People ask you to clean and you always go an extra mile. Clean a little more. They ask you to take care of a child and you do more. They ask you to cook and you do more. They ask you to read a book and you study the book. They ask you in the Spirit Center to come and give the water, and you not only offer the water, but you offer a smile with the water that you're giving the cup of water. That's total devotion. When I am fulfilling this task, working, and then I am mentally registering the higher planes. So he's associating work, true useful occupation, with connections. No wonder the next chapter is all about what he says, association. It's about association. I mentally register the higher planes because I am engaged. Oh yeah, I can hear, Vanessa, quiz. Yes, let's do the quiz. I wish I had the electronics here and saying 0 to 10, blinking, beep, 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 beep. and 0 being 0, 10 being 10. What is it? The question is for us, if possible, okay? How much of our daily lives can we consider that we're usefully occupying our time? In our daily basis, being useful. Because some people stay in front of their working computers the whole day at their jobs. But you ask them, how much of these 8 hours you spent, you actually did something useful? Oh, you're right. Sometimes I was just like bored. Be careful, because boredom is vibration. And when we go to the spiritual realm feeling bored, we keep being bored. And it's hard to get out of that frequency. If you go to the book Heaven and Hell by Kardec, in the second part, beautiful accounts of spirits who have discarnated and came back to tell us through the mediums. Happy spirits, middling conditioned spirits, suicidal spirits. Yeah, because suicide spirits don't stay like in hell. Hell doesn't exist. They can come back and tell us their stories too. Okay, criminals. Yes, criminals do too. They can come back and tell our stories. So capital punishment for them is actually freedom. Did you know it? The day we identify that capital punishment is freedom, we're never going to kill anybody. Of course, we're not going to kill, because we're not supposed to kill the body of anybody. But I'm just saying, if people want to correct that soul, by killing the physical body, you're freeing that mind. And they may be doing worse after discarnating, because they're freer. So capital punishment shouldn't be celebrated. Never. Ever. First, because we don't have the right to kill anybody. And second, because it really doesn't kill anybody. It doesn't help anybody. On the contrary, we can worsen the whole scenario, because now with greater avenging thoughts, they can come back and do much worse. That's a possibility. Not necessarily happens all the time, but that's a possibility. So we need to be fully aware of it. Okay? All right. And then, let me see here. Just a second, friends. Natty, hello. Do we choose to forget these teachings in the spiritual realm once we incarnated? Because it would be so much help to remember them. You're right. Actually, we don't forget completely. You know, a computer, let me give you an idea, analogy. It's like you have lots of softwares, programs, and you have lots of files. And it's not that you forgot, it's there. The software is minimized, the software of this program here, and it's there. You just need to open. So we need to open it. Okay? Let me give you, because of free will, we need to voluntarily go after opening these files, like we're doing now. Because if we are simply born and somebody's telling us, look, you have all of this, then where's the merit of actually making choices? Like Chico Xavier himself, for example. Let's not forget. When he said, I want to help with the dissemination of Spiritism, he was so young. And then he said, oh, really? You do? So discipline, discipline, discipline. And then he started writing books. When he finished his 30th book, he turned to a man and said, you said 30, we're done. He said, well, you want to continue? Yes. Okay, so let's go for more. And 30 after 30 after 30 books, more than 400 plus books were psychographed. Why didn't Chico, was he prepared before reincarnated? Of course. But why wasn't he clear-cut, knowing from the get-go, remembering everything? Because we're humans, And on the level of evolution we have on the earth, it would create so much anxiety that we probably wouldn't be handling it well. So the best thing to do is gravitate little by little. Everything in nature is gradual. Gradual. And here we are, gradually being given the opportunity of recalling it. But these laws are spread out everywhere, Natty. It's not only for us, spiritists. It's for everyone. So if we really want to be upright, righteous, it's inside of us, the conscience. We are the ones who put it aside or who prefer not to be diligent towards the fulfillment of God's laws. Okay? We are learning to be obedient. Where are we regarding our obedience towards God? And not that obedience like God says, you behave and stay still on your chair, Vanessa. And I'm gonna say, okay. No, God doesn't say that. I have it inside of me. I'm gonna stay still now because it makes sense instead of jumping up and down my chair, because it wouldn't belong to the context, right? It's this discernment is inside of me, but I need to be willing to unfold it. Hello, Rita Di Cássia e Marilda. Now, he says, today, however, we know that the law of work is the path to freedom. And this book was published in 1958 on the earth. He's talking about today. Today we know that the law of work is the path to freedom. But what is he referring to? Today, the time, 1958? Or he meant now with the Spiritist teachings, the universality of its teachings, we already know that the law of work leads us to freedom. Yes, that's the second option. Without this law, the mental world would fall into slumber and stagnation. So friends, if I am feeling stagnated, logics, mathematical logics here, stagnation means that we're not working, we're not feeling useful, right? Is that what you're saying? Exactly. We're not. Oh, I feel stuck. Okay. Unstuck ourselves. How? What am I skipping? I can be useful here. And I'm dreaming of something else. For example, I'm here, it's cold, and I remember a dear friend of mine. She used to have depression living here in the northeast of the United States. And she said, I think if I move to Florida, I'm gonna be healed. Why? Because of the sun. You think there is no depression in Florida? You think? Of course there is. Depression is nothing to do with the sun. Of course there's seasonal depression. Okay? But it's all about what? The inner. Because sometimes we're dreaming of Hawaii, beautiful Caribbean beaches, thinking this is happiness. To be there, enjoying. And you know, the other day I received even a message from Spiritist friends talking about how sunny it is in Florida. And thinking that they are more fortunate. Really? Is that the reality for us? It doesn't make sense. Because the light comes from within. The happiness doesn't come from the sun. It comes from within. Jesus never mentioned go to the tropics because that's where I will be. Yeah, it's kind of funny and surprising at the same time. Thank God I've never heard. Can you imagine if Jesus came to the Caribbean islands to tell us the teachings? We would all move there, right? Or to a tropical location. He came to a location where it's like, climatically speaking, it's not very impacting. What wisdom. Some people wonder why there. There are many reasons why there. One of them certainly being this one. So we don't think that the external is going to bring what we need to do with the internal. It's the inner first. And I can see clearly now that the rain of my ignorance is gone. Yeah, I know. I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. Right? I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. The rain of my ignorance. And I can finally see it. It doesn't depend on the external. You're not going to be happy just because there is more sun. Of course, if you have seasonal depression, you can have a lamp, you can go, but it's not going to give you the fulfillment. None of these wise books on the earth tell us about that. So why elude yourself with the external change if it's the inner? Your son, my friend, that you're missing is right here in your home. Your spouse that needs you and you don't listen. She or he has a son inside of him or her. And if you just listen to them, they're going to smile to you. And their rays of sunshine are going to clearly open your heart to true happiness. When I look at my child, whether they are little as babies or teenagers or young adults, and I sit down and say, tell me about you and observe you. I want to admire you because you're a child of God. Your nature, just tell me you are my center now. And that, the sun that shines in that soul is going to illuminate us. And we're going to be happy. This useful occupation of being mindful of each other's presences, and I'm watching you, sharing your feelings through these emoticons. Thank you for sharing, because we can feel more together. We're associated here. We're connected. But being mindful here. Being mindful. I will regain my inner activity and get out of my stagnation. It doesn't begin in the neighbor's house. It doesn't begin by serving the homeless in the streets. It begins by looking ourselves in the mirror and saying, I love you. I love you. I love you, Vanessa Anseloni. I know you have a lot to change and to transform yourself, but for now, I know God loves you, and I do too. And let's keep going, because we can stumble and we're going to stand up again. Like Jesus. How humble was Jesus when he was carrying his cross? And there was a moment he stumbled. He fell down, and a kind soul comes and says, let me carry the cross for you. And he allows the master for somebody else to help him out. What a lesson. How often we are carrying our cross and we are overwhelmed and we don't ask for help. And if people try to help, we push them aside. That ego is going to kill us. Literally, is going to kill us. It's not worthwhile. I love you too, Adilson. Yes, your loving smile, your kind attitude. Thank you. Yes, sunny everywhere in the world. Sun, sun, Mr. Sun. Oh, Mr. Sun, Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, please shine down on me. Oh, Mr. Sun, Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, hiding behind the tree. These little children are asking you, please come out so we can play with you. Mr. Sun, Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, please shine down on us. And we have, as Joana de Angelis said, through Divaldo Franco, an affirmation for us. I have a sun shining within me. It's the divine in all of us. Right on, my friend Osvaldo. And we can feel it, right, Rita? The positive, our divine light. And if I look at you, let's allow each other's sunlight shine on each other. And we're going to nourish each other. And we're going to be strong to do what we have to do. How do we envision higher planets? People care, they are mindful, they listen to each other, they devote themselves to their tasks, right? Yes, Teresa, thank you. Yes, thanks to Virginia, I've learned to sing. Thank you, Virginia. Yeah, I've learned to sing songs, yeah, to be mindful with her, present, exactly. So let us sing and enjoy life. We'll be occupying ourselves usefully. And he says to us, when we flee the dictates of the law of work, it's like stepping to the roadside to watch the traffic of evolution pass, leaving behind all those who choose the illusion of laziness. So, stagnation. We need to be useful. We need a therapeutic moment. Do you feel useful? Do you feel useful? Just yes or no. Do you? Let's think about it. Am I useful? Do I feel I am? Because I know I am, but do I feel I am? How do I feel I am useful? Are you prepared to the surprises you're going to find as you unfold your awareness of how useful you are, how unique you are? Yes, Sarah, of course you are. Of course you know you are, because you're a working machine. I know you for such a long time, and I tell you, my hat to you, because your total devotion to the cause. Right on. We need you, and we are very thankful to your love for work. Okay? Keep it up. Right, Eliana? Oh, yes, as President Obama said today, yes, we can, as we did, and yes, we can. And we can keep it up. Let's keep it up. Yep. I know, right, Solange? Yep. Yes, that's how it is, the general good, everything for the general good. Oh, Eliana, you're in Australia. Oh, you know, I talked about the inner sun, but really, Melbourne, Australia, the sun there now would be so nice, right, friends? In this freezing weather here, oh, Australia. God bless, my friend. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you. Thank you for bringing the warmth of beautiful Australia. So here we have, the person who practices deception will not only suffer for the unfortunate act of stealing what belongs to the general good, but regret the misfortune of having prepared for himself a prison cell that stifles his best spiritual faculties. Mere activity for its own sake, however, is not enough. The lower regions are a beehive of activity. Friends, these are revelations. Again, he connects work with general good, and he says when we are not aware of our usefulness, occupying ourselves usefulness, we are stealing from the general good. Emmanuel, in another book, Living Spring, he has a message dedicated, do not steal, and he makes a deep analysis of this. Stealing time, energy, vitality. And he's saying, when we are useful, we are in sync with the general good. When we're not, we're out of sync, we're logged out. And you know, how do you feel when you're logged out from the internet? How do you feel? Awkward, as if a piece of you is missing, as if you're disconnected from the world. Now, that's how we are when we are not logged in the account of useful occupation. We need to log in and be there constantly. Once we're there, we're connected. We're not stealing from the general good. Thank you, Melissa, for your loving words. Thank you. Ah, Marilda. Oh, Brasil brasileiro. Yes, and Jussar is saying, stealing dreams. Emmanuel talks about that, Jussar, you're right. In the book Living Spring, stealing the dreams of others, stealing the hope of others. Even in the book Jesus in the Home, Neil Lucio reports a passage in which Jesus talks about how we can steal the soul and even kill the spirit of the person by putting their hopes down. So we need to be very conscientious, very mindful. Every time, that's the exercise Mentor Joseph is giving to us. Everything we're gonna do, mind over matter. Mind over matter. The exercise is, ask, I'm gonna lay down now. Am I being useful? Yeah, I'm gonna do a visualization to charge me up. Good. I'm gonna lay down just because I feel like doing nothing. Uh-oh. Is that useful? No. So if I don't know what to do, pray. And then you lay down to rest, recharge, and begin anew. But I'm gonna sit down because I just feel like lazy. Some people say nowadays, feel like lazy doing nothing. And he's saying, if we do that, we are not gonna be attuned with the higher planes, which means logics. We're gonna be connected with the lower ones. Two choices of mental current, destructive or constructive. There is no in between. It's our choice. But Vanessa, that's hard. Maybe at the beginning it's gonna be it's like going to the gym. You're like, you go there, but then it becomes a routine. Then you consciously sit and say, now I'm gonna talk to my friends. Why? Because I wanna enjoy their company, and that's useful. This loving exchange with friends, as long as we don't make that our whole time, because we can't indulge, especially in a world that suffers and needs a lot of help. We need to help. But recharge, as André Luiz says in the book Mechanisms of Mediumship, which is not yet in English. He says we need to observe that there are mental inductors, stimulus that is going to trigger thoughts and feelings, and then necessarily words and actions. So mental inductors, he says, good conversations, books, images we watch. So there's no neutral. The neutrality of life does not exist. It doesn't exist. Oh, but Vanessa, I just like watching movies that are of, action. Yeah, there's a little bit of killing here and there, but it's just action. And you think it's good or bad. No, but it's harmless. No, it's harmful. If there are guns, it's harmful. There's no in between. There is either higher vibration or lower vibration. In terms of vibrations, there is no neutrality. Once we learn this law, we learn it. We need to comply, to live well, to feel better. You mean the general news or the general good? The lower regions are a beehive of activity. So being active does not mean that we are highly connected. Okay? We don't. Some people say, but I worked the whole day. You worked or you were active? I was active. Working the spirit sense, being useful the whole day? That's another story. Okay? Oh, I know, Melissa, you're asking about the world. Yeah, we'll get there, Melissa. 1 minute, we'll hopefully unfold that part. In the second part of the chapter, he says, beyond the obligation to work principle, though we are remunerated, we must reach a point where we feel the pleasure to serve. Do you feel the pleasure to serve? And he talks about without even the thought of reward. Do you feel it already? What a feeling, huh? What a feeling. Please believe it. Yes, what a feeling. The pleasure to serve. To the point you're there and you're serving people like, why are you doing this? What is your hidden agenda? And I say, my hidden agenda is, let me see. Woo, love. That's the hidden agenda. That's, what is the hidden agenda? Love. Pleasure to serve. We didn't invent the rule. God did. If you don't understand it, my friend, just talk to God. What is the phone number? It's in the heart. Speed dial. G-O-D. G-O-D, and like the song with children, we sing for children. G-O-D, God is here. G-O-D, God is everywhere, so you can talk to him anytime and ask, why did you create us to feel pleasure to serve? Because he's loving, because he's good, he's merciful, because he's abundant. That's it. Right, Melissa? Love is our hidden agenda. And in this world that is learning so much, and we're learning too, let us have this hidden agenda. Love. Love, love, love. And Emmanuel says, action transforms environment and service transforms human beings. Tasks that are offered spontaneously and voluntarily without thought of reward will activate the influence of heavenly goodness that also helps everyone freely. I want to be together with the good spirits. He's giving us the recipe. If you spontaneously, voluntarily help others without any thought of reward, you're already connected. Really? Really? Really, 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 really? No doubt. high spirits. He's talking about heavenly goodness. I will read it again because that's the core of the whole chapter. He begins with that and he's going to end with it. Tasks that are offered spontaneously and voluntarily without thought of reward will activate the influence of heavenly goodness that also helps everyone freely. Something somebody never thought about, that the good spirits are always helping us freely. But how about us? Are we ever doing this? Some people come, but my life is going so wrong, so many obsessors. What do I do? That's the recipe. This is the recipe. Work spontaneously, voluntarily, without the thought of reward. And you're going to connect with heavenly goodness, even in your workplace. Oh yes. You know how often people ask you to do things that are not in the job description? And I know people are like, really? How much more are you going to give me if I do this? If they ask you, can you do this? Yes, I will. Why? Not because of the CV or because I want a promotion. Just for the pleasure to serve. So we can attach this pleasure to serve in our workplaces, in our households. Yes, at every single moment, voluntarily and spontaneously helping a family member at home. You're seeing them, they are thirsty. Oh, you're thirsty? Let me pick up the water for you. I'm serving you. Let's say I am your guest in your house and you're serving me. I'm a guest, but I can stand up, take my plates from the table and bring voluntarily. Let's not ask. Let's not expect that people are going to ask us to help. Oh, because you're my host, you're supposed to do everything. No. Voluntarily and spontaneously, without the need of listening. Thank you, Vanessa, for helping. No intention of receiving anything in return. It's a hard thing. But the reward is heavenly goodness. And then you feel like singing, I'm in heaven. Yes, I'm in heaven and I don't know the lyrics, but it feels like heaven, and it feels like heaven. Right? Yes, spontaneous. Adilso is saying when we feel when it comes from the heart. Right? We feel it. As we advance, he says, we will understand more and more clearly the need to work for the sake of serving. Look at the combination, to work for the sake of serving. For the sake of serving. Work for the sake of serving. Work and service are not the same. Okay? And Emmanuel clearly is telling us, remember when Joseph was saying, I work in my time, but I serve in somebody else's time. But I will work in my time too for the sake of serving others in their own time. Now people need this. Okay, I'm going to work myself in my inner dispositions to feel the joy, the pleasure of going there and serving them. Right, Osvaldo? Yes, and do everything as Adilson is saying, with joy, gratitude, and humility, because nothing comes from us. Adilson is right. Everything comes from God. Nothing. Everything from God. Finally, to wrap it up, Emmanuel, throughout this chapter, is making us feel that when we listen like a dog, you know, Pavlov's dog, the bell and the meat. the bell and the meat, the bell and the meat. When he presented just the bell, the dog was already salivating, even before or even without presenting the meat. So our dear educator Emmanuel is teaching us here, work, pleasure to serve. Work, pleasure to serve. Work, pleasure to serve. Somebody says work and we're smiling. And people look at us like who don't know these teachings. They're like, why are you smiling? We have more work to do and you're smiling? Of course we do. Of course. Oh, we have to do it all again? Wonderful. And he's teaching us the presence of the higher planes, the good spirits. He wraps up by saying, so beautiful, in the higher, when we begin to serve our neighborhood wholeheartedly, we enroll in the process of purifying our own soul and begin to align ourselves with abundant life. Logging in. In the higher realms of spirit, work is not imposed on anyone. A person is conscious of the truth, understands that doing good attunes him to the love of God. He surrenders to this fact of his own free will. This is why the higher realms, in the higher realms, he who serves progresses towards the heights of a glorious immortality. He reproduces within himself the marvels of heaven that surround us everywhere. Heaven is everywhere. Heaven is everywhere. It's just a matter of connection. It's like Wi-Fi. Everywhere we go nowadays, there is Wi-Fi. But we need to connect. Otherwise, it doesn't serve a purpose. Heaven is everywhere. Everywhere. Because God is everywhere. People are godly created and godly sustained. And we, to be there in that connection, all we need to do is to feel the pleasure to serve through the work inside of us, working within to feel the pleasure to serve, working within to feel the pleasure to serve, working within to feel the pleasure of service and the connection with these beautiful hearts and minds of the illuminated spirits that are constantly and freely working for the benefit of all of us in the name of God, for God, and to God. As Rita Di Castro is saying, God is love. You are love, and many blessings, dear friends. Let us stay in this synchronicity wherever we are in the world, in this beautiful community. Share the beautiful thoughts, always thinking, we can do it. Yes, we can. Yes, we can, because we're children of God. A kiss and a hug. And until tomorrow, God allowing us.